Darkcast Network. The light shines brightest on our indie podcasts.
Welcome to Brew Crime, the podcast where we drink brews, talk crime, conspiracies, or whatever catches our attention. This is Mike and my co-host,
JT.
Welcome back.
Hello.
How's it going, JT?
Yeah, hello. It's just the two of us this go around.
Just the two of us.
We can make it if we try with some beer in our cups. You and I.
And all of you.
And everybody else. The countless millions and millions. I wish.
Yeah, I wish, yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
But yes, this episode we're going to talk about killer siblings. Is that what we're calling it?
Yeah, siblings that kill. It's weird.
Siblings that kill.
It was harder to look up than I thought it was going to be. Because
it was.
You look it up and you immediately get familicide. And you don't really get, brothers doing things together like this. So,
well, I got both, but we'll get to that.
Hey-o.
Yes.
Well, I do too. That happened for me. I didn't give up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's gonna be fun, and by fun I mean horrifying.
Horrifying.
But the time together we'll be together. That's the point.
Yes, we'll be together. Yes, almost like siblings.
Yes. I don't have the genes to grow that kind of beard, so.
No, what can you do?
In fact, I don't have jeans at all. I'm wearing pajama pants.
I'm wearing shorts, hey.
Hey! Oppa!
Oppa, yes. And a Brew Crime shirt.
Boom!
Metal
Brew Crime.
I guess I'll go first this episode.
Yes, sir.
So, I've got the pairing for the whole episode today. I have a beer from Twin Sails Brewing Company out of Port Moody. Twin Sails is owned by twin brothers, and this is their Orange Slices Citra Double IPA, coming in at 8.2% alcohol, and it's a
Yummy.
hazy IPA. This beer has a pretty fruity aroma. It's kind of what do you expect from a hazy IPA? It is called Orange Slices for a reason. It's kind of got that orange fruity aroma. Previous batches of this beer that I've had have been a lot more fruity and sweet than this one. Mm-hmm. This one's it is orange, but it's just not as fruity. It's a little more pithy and sort of, I don't know, it's kind of drying on the mouth. It's good, but it's just not as good as I've had in the past, unfortunately. It happens sometimes. And maybe this isn't the freshest can in the world. There is no date on this one.
Yeah, I actually had a hazy IPA at a ball game I was at last night from Stone Brewing, which are local to Richmond. And I think also there's one on the West Coast.
Yeah, they're from California originally.
Cool.
Yeah.
But I think the tap was just bad.
It happens sometimes.
Their stuff's good. Yeah, I mean, it does, and you can't knock it. That's why I say try everything twice.
Yes.
Especially beer.
Yes, not murder.
No.
The title of my case is a little long. When two brothers shatter a town and destroy a family. This is the case of the Broken Arrow killings.
God, burying the lead, my friend.
Yes it is.
Oh man, sounds like they did it big.
Yes. So the Bever family was a large one with 7 children ranging from 18 years to 2 years old.
Good God.
Yeah. The Bever family lived in the city of Broken Arrow in Oklahoma. In 2019, the population of the city was 110,000 people. Well, Broken Arrow was rated as the 22nd safest city in the United States and safest in Oklahoma in 2007. This was absolutely not the case in 2015, unfortunately.
It's interesting to hear cities ranked safe in the U.S. because it's relatively, the bar's real low.
Yeah.
Usually.
Unfortunately.
So,
I mean, 22 is still pretty good considering how many cities there are. But
no, that's very true. I mean, that's impressive, especially in Oklahoma.
Yes. Let's meet the Bever family. The family lived at 709 Magnolia Court in what I have to assume was a good-sized home for the 9 family members. The parents were David Bever, a man who worked in the tech industry, and April Bever, a homemaker and homeschool teacher. Now let's get into the kids in order of age. Robert, 18, Michael, 16, Crystal, 13, Daniel, 12, Christopher, 7, Victoria, 5, and Autumn, 2. So many kids.
I have 2. That's enough.
Yeah. From the sound of things, there was likely some domestic abuse in the household as well as verbal abuse. Both the murderers in this case and one of the surviving siblings would corroborate this fact. From the sounds of it, David would beat his wife and also direct his physical and verbal abuse towards the children.
Okay. All right.
There was talk that the kids wondered if their parents actually liked kids or only kept having them for tax benefits.
It's not that big of a benefit, y'all. It just isn't.
I'm just guessing, probably, especially not in Oklahoma. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
The kids were all homeschooled and were not able to hang out with any children outside of the household.
Isolation.
Yeah. Robert and Michael both had angry streaks, and it worried their siblings. Robert had been thinking about killing his family since he was 13 years old.
Holy shit.
Yes.
But I
He's
mean,
now 18.
All that stuff going on inside the house.
Yeah. Later, he would find out that Michael also was obsessed with murder. Robert would finally be able to get a job outside of the house in 2014 at a call center when he was 17 years old. Unfortunately for the family, he would use his newfound money to start building an arsenal of weapons. This would consist of a large collection of knives and would consist of guns.
I was really hoping you'd just say broken arrows, and then how much harm could they do?
So nuclear weapons? Remember that movie?
Yes, I do.
It wasn't very good.
No, it wasn't. Is that the one with Charlie Sheen?
I don't know, but it has John Travolta. Yeah.
That's right. It's John Travolta and Christian Slater.
That's it. Robert and Michael would purchase guns and have them shipped to multiple different gun shops and pick them up and hide them at home.
Yep.
They would begin to plan the murders in earnest in 2015 with an aim to do it in September. Things were going so well for them, planning-wise, though, they decided that they might as well move the timeline up.
Well, it's like when I buy somebody a present, I just want to give it to them early and not wait.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
The fateful day would be July 22nd, 2015, when the two boys, Robert and Michael, made their terrible decision. Crystal would head to their room to let them know that they had dishes to do in the kitchen. This would be around 11:30 p.m. And she noticed that the boys were putting on body armor and had a bunch of knives thrown all over their beds.
At that point, I would say that's kind of a clue.
Yeah. Not only would this be terrifying, but without knowing what they meant, Michael would ask, should we do it now? And then Robert just said yes. Michael would then tell Crystal to head over to his computer to check something on the screen. This is when Robert snuck up behind her and slit her throat.
I was going to say, I'm guessing it's not the Numa Numa guy.
No. She would break free from Robert and begin to run, but he would still be able to stab her in the stomach and in the arms. God. She would end up making it out of the house, and she'd end up on the ground outside and pass out. Mm-hmm. April, the mother, would hear the screams and run to the room to see what the fuck was going on, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, Robert was ready for her, and he would stab her 48 times, including in the neck, head, torso, and both arms and both hands.
Oh my God.
There's some rage there, right?
It's just a little bit.
Yeah.
There's some rage. It's like you're 11% beer. There's a lot of rage.
Next up would be David, the father, who was stabbed 28 times in the torso, face, neck, and left arm and hand. It was quoted later that he used the biggest knife he had by his brother Michael. Both Christopher and Victoria would be next with horrifying aggression. Their 12-year-old brother Daniel would be able to lock himself in a room with a phone and dial 911.
Mm-hmm.
This is a quote from True Crime Society blog. He said that his brother was attacking the family, screaming. Commotion and a male voice were heard in the background before the line went dead. Dispatchers tracked the address by searching the number. After a failed attempt to call David Bever, the father, they dispatched officers to the scene. Now, Daniel was aware that Robert was attacking his family members, but he was unaware, it seems, that his brother Michael was involved. Michael would play up the fact that he was scared of Robert and needed to get into the room so he didn't die. Fortunately, when Daniel opened the door, Robert was right there and stabbed him 21 times.
God.
One of the two brothers would find Crystal and drag her back into the house to finish her off. They had planned on suffocating her and also cutting their baby sister Autumn's head off.
This is a fucking horror movie.
Yes, it is. I'm sure it has. I'm surprised it hasn't been made into one yet.
I mean, in true honesty, the way that you're describing this sounds a lot like the intro to Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Okay, I haven't seen that one. I guess you could say, luckily, with the phone call to the cops, the two would bug out and run for the woods behind the house. So only 10 minutes after the 911 call, the police were on site. They rushed the house and tried the door, but it was locked, so they tried knocking. Nothing. They would hear a moaning voice asking for help, which turned out to be Crystal. They would kick the door in and grab Crystal and pull her out of the house to safety.
Jesus.
They would then rush back into the house and find Autumn, the 2-year-old, safe, luckily.
Oh, thank God.
They would also find the bodies of the family members that had been killed, but no Robert or Michael. The cops had brought in canine officers, and it would not be long until they caught up with the two murderers. Robert would be found with a knife, but both would surrender without incident.
I mean, it's one of those things where if you're going to do something like this, you better have an exit strategy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So one of the two assholes would blurt out that there was a thumb drive in the house with the murder plan. The police would find the drive while going through the house for evidence. This is a quote, "It was a pretty gruesome scene and unprecedented in terms of the type of crimes we get in Broken Arrow." Broken Arrow Police Sergeant Thomas Cooper told NBC News. Another quote, "Anytime someone murders their family members as young as 5, I don't see how there could be any type of mental process to that to justify anything," another officer said. Broken Arrow, a city of around 100,000, averages 1 or 2 homicides every couple years, Cooper said. This is a relatively safe community, smaller than Tulsa, and what you might call a bedroom community. The crime scene has taken a pretty heavy toll on officers who have come out here, he added. It hits close to home, especially when the victims are adults and juveniles. Our officers have a lot to take in. You don't say, right?
Yeah, I know. No kidding.
Crystal would be rushed to a hospital and would be sent right into surgery, where she was in serious but stable condition, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely fucking amazing she would survive this.
Yeah.
Like, started with a slit throat and then stab wounds. The morning of July 23rd, 2015, it appears thousands of rounds of bullets arrived at the home, as Robert and Michael would not have planned this to be the end of the killing spree. They had planned on dismembering the family, putting them into storage bins, and putting them in the attic.
Oh my God.
The killings were supposed to happen quietly so that they could kill their entire family and start part 2 of their plan. They were going to drive from their home in Oklahoma all the way to Washington State. Okay. They were going to trade their knives in for their guns and all of the ammo. They had hoped to kill multiple people in every town they stopped in, with a plan to kill between 50 and 100 people. One source even said 500 people.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, these are two fucking horrible humans. They wanted to be more infamous than school shooters and mass shooters of the time. Luckily for everyone but their family, they got caught before it could get even worse. Both brothers would be charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of assault and battery with intent to murder. Robert Bever would end up pleading guilty after originally pleading innocent. he would be sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Because he was being charged as an adult, the thought was that he pled guilty to take the death penalty off the table. Which kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If this was the case, it worked. Robert would attempt suicide on July 6, 2016 by hanging using a bedsheet. He was found uninjured by guards, though, and put on suicide watch. He would end up in the news again in 2019 when he tried to stab a psychological clinician and social services specialist at the prison with an 8-inch shiv.
Where does one get one?
Well, you make one.
Where? What? That's a big fork.
Yes. Luckily, a guard saw it playing out and grabbed Robert and was able to get him to drop the knife. He would end up getting tattoos on both hands. One, LWOP, or Life Without Parole, and the other would spell out 5 on his fingers. Yeah, he's a fucking piece of shit. Michael would plead not guilty and would end up getting 5 consecutive life sentences for each murder count and 28 years for the assault with a deadly weapon, with the possibility of parole after 85% of the time served. So still no parole, as no one is living that long anyways. Michael's bid for an appeal was also denied. At least, in the end, both Crystal and Autumn were adopted by the same family.
That's good.
The home would end up being burned down in a suspicious fire in March 18th, 2017, while the city was currently fundraising to purchase the home from the bank that held the mortgage on the home. So March 27th, 2019, the land was dedicated a reflection park in an official ceremony. So the Bever Family First Responders Memorial Park was the name. This is just an awful case, and I hope that somehow the 2 girls are able to have some semblance of a normal life after this horrific trauma.
Yep.
And that's my case of 2 fucking awful brothers and awful humans.
I'm about to tell you about 3 fucking awful brothers and a friend of theirs.
Oh, geez.
Yep. So we're just going to pop right on into it, because why the heck not?
Yeah, why not?
So this is the Briley brothers' brutality in Richmond, Virginia, which, hey, that's familiar. I live across the street from there pretty much.
Oh, geez.
A hop, skip, and ice skate and a jump. So growing up with siblings, or in my case, a sibling, was pretty important. I mean, was it challenging? Yeah.
Yes,
Could we fight? Yeah. Kinda. But without my brother, I wouldn't have had a friend, considering we moved all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about starting the script with some kind of cutesy quote about brothers, then swerving everyone, because obviously this wasn't the reality for the Briley brothers of Richmond. In fact, it was pretty much the opposite. So much so that I had to take a look into the concept of sibling order and what it actually meant, and how an entire family of brothers, an entire next generation, take it that far. So this is the case of Linwood Earl, James Dyrall, and Anthony Ray Briley. Not only were there 2 brothers, but 3, and 1 additional person outside the family, Duncan Eric Meekins, who wreaked havoc on the city of Richmond from March 12th to October 19th, 1979.
Yikes.
Yeah, havoc that would always create confusion for locals and police, and they murdered so many. They murdered people in so much of a different way each time that the police didn't even see a pattern. That's how different that was.
Jeez.
So it's a case that's fascinating to many simply due to the fact that you don't really see much in the way of siblings that kill. Like I mentioned, if you look it up, you find things about siblings killing each other or genres of familicide, but, not much else. So to put this in perspective regarding a timeline, this all occurred around 8 years after a judge made the ruling in Bradley v. Richmond School Board, which it resulted in the desegregation of busing. So that led to white flight to counties on the outskirts of Richmond.
Jesus
like
Christ.
Mine. Yeah. No, that's yeah. So in addition,
what year again? 70 what?
This was 8 years after. Well, this was 79. That's when the case
79.
Was. Yeah.
This reminds me of my mom told me of a trip she took down to California, and innocent Canadian got on the back of the bus, and this nice black woman leaned over. "You're not from around here, are you?" And she's like, "No, why?" because the white people sit at the front of the bus. And that was California in the
That's
70s.
horrifying.
Yeah. And that's never been a thing here. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's racism here too, but there's never been segregated buses or anything.
So like things really progressed, in Richmond in terms of like in that time period, you had the Bradley v. Richmond School Board, which desegregated buses, and then 2 years before these murders, Richmond's first African American mayor was elected. So that's pretty quick.
That is quick.
If
That's
you think
amazing.
about it. So there's a lot going on here in the old Commonwealth. That's kind of a taste of it. In the same decade, Philip Morris opened up their cigarette manufacturing facility in Richmond. So they are the ones that do Marlboros, which they now call themselves Altria, as far as I know.
Okay.
But they're still what they are.
Cancer sticks, yep.
Yep. Actually,
allegedly,
I think they bought like the blue e-cigarettes, or they bought something, and they promised that they were going to stop selling tobacco products. And of course, they bought the vapes, right? So,
it's just like the oil companies will stop selling oil, I'm sure.
Well, I think Philip Morris also did the years of misguiding people, right, with their health reports and stuff. And,
sure.
They did that whole thing. And, now they're selling some kind of a smoking cessation drug. So it's, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So back in 70 and 80, the population of Richmond was between 219 and 250,000. And those should probably be reversed, because between those 2 years, Richmond saw a 12.2% population dip between the 70s and 80s. I don't know exactly what led to that, but from what I can conclude, it has a lot to do with what I mentioned before with white flight, desegregation, right?
Jesus, that's a lot of white people that suck.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm giving Richmond kind of a bad review. I mean, in reality, Richmond's a pretty nice place. You've got good areas and rough areas, but so does everyone. We've mentioned this. There's a lot of history here, along with museums, old cemeteries. Hollywood Cemetery alone is the burial place of 2 or 3 presidents, the only place in the nation, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But, there's a ton of stuff. I mean, great food, too. Man, we all know I love my food, so.
Yeah.
And there's breweries. Yay!
Woo woo!
But you know what? Let's get into them. The order of the siblings of the Brileys: Linwood, who was born March 26, 54; James, June 6, 56; Anthony, February 17th, 1958. So they're all 2 years apart. They were brought up in Highland Park in Richmond, which is really coincidental because that's where my former co-host Rudy lived for a couple of years.
No way.
Yeah. I told him about that the other day. He was like, "Wish you didn't." Linwood was not the oldest. They had an older brother, Edward, who left the home to live with relatives in his early teen years. Lucky for him, right? Mm-hmm. From what is described, the parents and family, they were pretty supportive. From the outside, people would describe the brothers as helpful. They'd mow the lawn, help people with their cars. The inside was a far different situation. And it wasn't due to their parents. It was the brothers themselves. The brothers collected exotic animals in the house. The collection consisted of boa constrictors, tarantulas, piranhas.
Wow.
Of course, it's not that simple. A lot of people have these kind of types of animals. It happens. The difference is that the 3 brothers participated in zoosadism. It's kind of an SAT word basically for the cruelty and torture of animals.
Jesus.
They took a lot of pleasure in feeding the snake. We'll leave it at that. And that's not a euphemism. That's a literal statement.
Yeah. I mean, you got to feed a snake, you got to feed a snake. But if you're feeding it in a really cruel way, that's a different story.
Right. So let's put it this way. It was so bad that their mother, Bertha, packed up and left. She did not feel safe. She got out of there. And on top of that, their father, James Dyrrell Briley Sr., was the only person that the boys feared. And even if that was the case, their father still kept his bedroom door padlocked from the inside during the night.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got a lot of questions, right? There's a lot here. A lot of people would say the zoosadism is one of the magic 3 items that leads to the psychopathy or serial killing. But that... that's been disproven at this point, the whole 3 thing. But it's still fucked up. And maybe that's a hot take. It's not a hot take. It's just fucked up. Here's the first murder. Linwood, the oldest brother, committed the first murder in 71, 8 years before the Briley brothers spree. He was 16 at the time. So, as one does when they are teenagers and alone at home, he grabbed his rifle and decided to shoot it out of his bedroom window. I guess the exotic pets weren't enough, right?
Yeah.
57-year-old Orlean Christine, could be Orline, it is the South, could be Orline.
Could be, yeah.
The Briley's neighbor was outside grabbing laundry from the clothesline, which, for those of you playing the home game, was pretty popular back in the early 70s. Washers and dryers, well, they didn't have timers on them until the early 80s, and nothing was energy efficient until the 90s. Because I looked it up, damn it. The more you know again. Take that to your trivia nights.
The more you know.
Yes. So Linwood just kind of randomly shot out of his bedroom window, and he killed Orline Christian. Linwood almost got away with it, too. Almost. The relatives of Orline noticed a small blood mark under her armpit at the viewing, and that they led the funeral directors to re-examine the body, and they found a bullet entrance wound where the mark was. Here's the part, this killed me. Here's the part where cops get all like Columbo on us. So it's kind of amazing they solved anything like ever. So the detective cut out a sheet of plywood to represent Orline. Then he cut a hole in the plywood to represent the bullet wound. This is like a fucking high school, like, shitty science fair.
Yeah, for sure.
At that point, this very scientific method led him to the Briley home. He literally, like, made the hole for the bullet and, like, looked through the hole to see where it could be coming from. That's what he did.
Wow.
So they approached Linwood about it because it directed him there. Because they found a weapon. Of course they did. There's no time to move it. So he didn't say he didn't do it. He didn't say he did it. He didn't run. He said, I heard she had heart problems and she would have died soon anyways. That's a direct quote.
Wow. A little dark.
A little bit. So despite this, his lawyer actually convinced the judge it was an accident. And he got 1 year in reform school. Which back then, reform school probably sucked balls. But,
yeah.
kind of got away with it. But as it is, on top of that, his brother James got sent to juvenile hall for firing on a police officer during a pursuit. Like Bonnie and fucking Clyde.
Yeah, no shit.
So we'll take a quick second to talk about child order because I find this fascinating. The whole first, second, third. What does that mean?
Yeah.
So the case, like I said, it gave me a reason to look this up. So I found a fantastic paper written by Morales, Esparza, and Kaur called Briley Brothers, The Influence of Birth Order, Sibling Relationship Quality, and the Normalization of Violence on Adolescent Delinquency. So I'll say this. It was written for what I think would be a lower level class. Like, it looks like maybe a freshman paper.
Yeah.
But I found the method and the findings to be sound as I read through it. It was very reasonable as a paper. This is some of the stuff they've discovered. So sibling relationship quality accompanied by deviancy training leads adolescents to delinquency. Deviancy training occurs when siblings talk to each other about norm-violating acts with a positive attitude. The more someone was exposed to violence, the more normal they considered criminal activities, and the Briley brothers lived in an environment where there was adaptation and desensitization of violence. Birth order is impactful because of delinquency, leadership, personality, and parental interventions during conflicts. So older siblings serve multiple roles. Are you the older sibling?
I am, yes.
Great, we're going to agree with this. Older siblings serve multiple roles for younger siblings. Roles include advisors, role models, caregivers.
Yep.
Firstborns have higher neuroticism and conscientiousness.
More conscientious, yes.
I think that's really kind of where they're going with that. Firstborns might experience kind of falling from the throne when the next child is born.
Yeah, take that, Megan.
Yeah. And then firstborns kind of get exhausted as they seek attention. And that can have a negative impact on them, right? When my second one was born, my oldest he says stuff and does stuff that's just off the wall, but I think it's because he wants that.
Yeah, he wants that attention back, yeah.
Right. So younger siblings have higher openness and agreeableness. They're exposed to their older siblings, so delinquent behaviors. They start to express the same behaviors a couple years after their older siblings. And delinquency in younger siblings does not impact older siblings. So this isn't A, B, or BA. It is literally A, B. Conflict coping strategies kind of vary depending on birth order and relationships. Youth exposed to high amounts of violence may mask their emotions because showing emotions can increase their vulnerability and then their targets for violence. So, keep it in.
Yeah.
But for the Briley brothers, it was a little different. Rather than desensitization of violence, they kind of normalized it. So it's really interesting how they did that. In terms of the murder spree, it began in 1979 and included the 3 Briley brothers and an accomplice. I mentioned this in the beginning, Duncan Eric Meekins, but I just like saying that name.
Yeah.
It's fun. So it went on for 7 months, and it was carried out all over Richmond, the surrounding areas, and it terrified the entire community.
So on March... That's terrifying, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So March 12th, 1979 in Henrico County, which is 10 minutes that way, they found the home of William and Virginia Butcher. We're crossing over. This is how this works, themes. So William and Virginia Butcher. Linwood knocked on the door and said he had car trouble. And then he forced his way into the home, and at gunpoint, Anthony came inside, one of the brothers. They tied up the couple, robbed the house. As they robbed the house, they decided that's not enough, so they doused everything in gasoline.
Oh, jeez.
They lit the match. They dropped it as they left. What did they steal? A TV, a CB radio, a .32 pistol, and jewelry.
Okay.
And it was one of those really heavy fucking tube TVs, too, so...
Probably a big screen 22-inch or something.
Right. So for this, luckily, William freed himself and his wife from restraints. They got out. Hard stop. They got out.
Yeah.
And they escaped just before the house, the house and with the fire went up entirely. So March 21st, 1979, which is 11 days after the first attempt, Michael McDuffie was assaulted, shot, and robbed in his home. He was a vending machine serviceman.
That's a thankless job.
Yeah. 10 days later, Edric Alvin Clark was shot and killed over a drug dispute that involved Duncan Eric Meekins. April 9th, Mary Gowan, 76, was walking home from her babysitting job, and the brothers and Meekins followed her, broke into her house, beat, raped, robbed, and shot her.
Oh, fucking hell.
July 4th, 79, Christopher Phillips, 17, was hanging around Linwood's car, and they assumed he was trying to steal the car. Right, and they weren't having that at all. What they did was they surrounded the boy, they dragged him to a nearby backyard, and they wrestled him to the ground. And Linwood, despite Phillips' screams, killed him by dropping a cinder block on his head.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So you can see the differences in how these are happening, right? September 14th, 79, John Harvey, or Johnny G. Gallagher, he was a DJ. He was performing at a South Richmond nightclub. He stepped out for a break and he ran into the Brileys. Great timing.
Yeah.
They were actually trolling town for a victim. And there he was, right? They basically were waiting for the next person to come out of that club. They were holding on.
Yeah,
Hold on to hope. They put him in a trunk. They drove him to the ruins of the paper mill on Mayo Island, which lays in the middle of the James River. I pass it almost every day, and I didn't even know it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Must not be a lot of ruins left, then.
Ruins? Oh, no, I mean, it's still ruinous.
Oh, really?
Because it's like an island that's literally, like, very small right in the middle of the James River.
Okay.
I'll have to send you a picture.
Please do, yeah. Maybe get a canoe, too, and paddle over.
I mean, a lot of people will canoe and kayak in the James River. So they took Johnny G, they took him out of the car, and they shot him point blank.
Jeez.
They divided $6 from his wallet, and they dumped him in the river. He was found 2 days later. Linwood was still wearing a ring stolen from him when he was arrested.
Oh, God.
So September 30th, Mary Wilfong, 62, private nurse. The gang followed her to her Richmond apartment. They surrounded her outside of her door. Linwood beat her to death with a baseball bat, and then they robbed the house. October 5th, Blanche Page, 75, and Charles Garner, 59. Her boarder were murdered. Blanche was bludgeoned to death, and Garner was assaulted and stabbed to death with various improvised weapons. Baseball bat, 5 different knives, a pair of scissors, a fork. When Garner was found, he still had the scissors and fork embedded in his back.
Wow.
So October 19th, Harvey Wilkerson, his wife, Judy Barton, and their 5-year-old son. Harvey and Judy were bound and gagged with duct tape. Judy was sexually assaulted by Linwood and Meekins. Meekins shot Wilkerson in the head while James shot Barton and the 5-year-old boy. So it's just huge. So after all that time, after all the crimes committed basically in public, police were finally in the general vicinity of the neighborhood where the final murders happened.
Yeah.
They saw the Brileys and Meekins running down the street at an ungodly speed. So at the time, they didn't know where the shots were fired, and the bodies were not discovered until 3 days later, but the Brileys were arrested pretty much immediately afterwards.
Well, at least there's that.
Yeah. So interrogations followed, and Meekins cut a deal. Because, of course, he did.
Yeah.
It's 3 brothers against Meekins. He's going to cut a deal.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, his plea agreement allowed him to miss the death penalty, and they imprisoned him under a new name, and they also imprisoned him away from the brothers, right? He cut a deal, I would hope so. There won't be much of him left.
No.
So Meekins had the plea deal, and in return, so Meekins offered information about the entire crime spree. He received a life sentence plus 80 years. Around the time of his conviction, he would be eligible for parole in 12 to 15 years.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Anthony Briley, the youngest, he got life with parole. James and Linwood received numerous life sentences, faced capital charges only where they physically committed the actual killing of a victim. So Linwood was sentenced to death for abduction and murder of Gallagher. James received 2 death sentences, one for each of the murders of Judy Barton and her son Harvey. This all happened due to the Triggerman rule, which basically said, quote, only the actual perpetrator of a capital murder is eligible for the death penalty. In other words, this is not part of this. In other words, only the person who committed the physical act of murder or pulled the trigger is eligible for the death penalty in Virginia.
Okay. There's always some different rule, right?
Yeah, and there's always some twist to the story. So you'd think that that was the end of it. Case closed, they're caught, it's in the bag. The bag has a hole in it.
Of course it does.
You know, my
And
dog
it's
ate it.
leaking everywhere.
Yeah, it's real bad. The Briley brothers were housed at Mecklenburg Correctional Center, about an hour and 40 southwest of me.
Okay.
It's a maximum security prison. It was closed in 2012 due to a decrease in number of inmates in the correction system, had ongoing maintenance needs. It housed Virginia's male death row. That's
Okay.
really what it did. It was opened in 76, cost $20 million. It was a 360 inmate facility for, quote, the worst of the worst. So there were other inmates executed there. Earl Clanton Jr. was executed by electrocution. Derek Lynn Peterson was executed by electrocution. Willie Leroy Jones was executed by electrocution. And Lem Davis Tuggle Jr. was executed by lethal injection. And those are between the years of 88 and 96.
Okay.
So back in 83, Mecklenburg was still new. In fact, it was only 7 years old, and it was promised to be the most secure prison. So 2 of the Briley brothers and 4 others had decided it was time to test that theory. So it was Linwood Briley, James Briley, Lem Tuggle, Derek Peterson, Earl Clanton, and Willie Jones, which you'll probably recognize those names from the list I just read, not but 30 seconds ago.
Yep.
So there were some other prisoners who teamed up to help them escape, but most of those folks volunteered to stay behind. Why would you do that? But
No,
okay.
especially if you're involved with an escape, because you're going to get more time.
Yeah. So, they determined this was a feasible plan because they saw that the guards were dismissive about the rules and protocol was not being followed properly. March 31st, 1983, coming back in the evening from outdoor activities, Earl Clanton snuck into the guard's restroom. This gave him access to the control booth, which controlled the doors, right? So James Briley asked the guards to bring him a book from another prisoner on the opposite side of the facility. And so, of course, the guard left the control room unattended to get the book for Briley.
Oh, my God.
The American education system taught me good.
Not even a rock hammer with a poster of, what's her name? Rita Hayworth on top. Like,
Rita Hayworth
come
on
on
top.
now.
Oh, my God. Clanton ran from the bathroom to the control room. He pushed buttons. All gates to cells opened.
Oh, shit.
Commence chaos. Prisoners outnumbered the guards, and the guards were attacked using improvised weapons, beating them, stabbing them, worse. Basically, the inmates controlled Mecklenburg.
Jeez.
So, now they got the prison. How the hell do they get out? This is actually kind of ingenious. So they blackmailed the guards to call in a rumor about a bomb in the prison. The guards never practiced these drills. They had no idea. The inmates knew that, so they exploited it.
Oh my god.
So a van was sent into the prison for bomb disposal. The 6 escapees found the bomb disposal team, beat them up, got into their uniforms and safety gear, helmets covered their faces, and they pretended to defuse a portable TV as if it was the bomb.
Wow.
Yep. And they used that as their reason, right? And they ended up getting by everybody. They got into the van. The external doors were ordered open, and they escaped prison and death row.
That's amazing.
I know. So, real quick, after their escape, blood pumping, adrenaline going.
Yeah.
And then they're like, now what do we do? Like, we're out. What do we do?
Wow.
They literally couldn't agree on where they were going to go. Not 6 of them could agree where. And, if you ever played D&D, you never split the party. You never split the party. And they did. So, a day later, patrol officers ran into Earl Clanton and Derek Peterson 19 hours after they escaped, and they were captured.
Of course.
Tuggle, Jones, and Briley brothers stole a truck. That truck was actually had a very unique license plate, which was PEI 1.
Yeah.
Which I'm wondering if it was just like a company truck, right? PEI 1, 2, 3, whatever.
Or it was like from Prince Edward Island 1. Probably not. It would have said it.
Yeah, Richmond, I don't know. The Brileys were dropped off at their uncle's house, and Tuggle and Jones planned to head right to Canada. Then their truck ran out of gas.
Especially with extradition, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So Tuggle went to get gas for the truck, but he needed money. So he robbed a shop for $80. The owner of the shop read the license plate and reported it to the police 10 days after the escape. Tuggle was arrested. Tuggle didn't come back because he was arrested, and Jones got really impatient, and he was tired of all the running. It had been 10 days. So he called a police station and turned himself in.
Wow.
It's like, I'm out. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. But here's the thing. When he called, he was only 5 miles away from the border. He was so close.
Although it wouldn't have mattered. Like, if he was caught in Canada, he's still fucked. But
Yeah.
it's still hilarious.
Still.
Go to Mexico, man.
yeah.
Go to Mexico.
Right. So, Briley brothers made it for 19 days, and the police traced them to a garage show with a phone that they had made a call to their uncle. The uncle got them jobs under false identities, and they all got back into Virginia on June 19th that year. The brothers ran out of appeals. James Briley married on March 28th, 1985, in a prison ceremony his father attended because of, why not?
Of course, why not, right? Yeah.
The brothers were executed in the electric chair at Virginia State Penitentiary in Richmond. The penitentiary closed in 91, but held notable folks like Henry Lee Lucas and Frank Joseph Coppola.
Jeez.
Yeah. So Linwood, he was executed on October 12th, 1984. His last meal was a grilled tenderloin steak, baked potato, green peas, a salad with French dressing, rolls with butter, cake, peaches, punch, and milk.
Skip the milk, but everything else sounds pretty good.
Yeah. His last words were, "I am innocent."
Yeah. Another glass of milk, please?
James was executed on April 19th, 1985. His last meal was fried shrimp with cocktail sauce and a lemon-lime flavored soft drink, a.k.a. Sprite.
Gross.
James' last words, though, he smiled at the witnesses, and he twice asked, "Are you happy?"
What?
When executed, inmates actually tried to delay the execution by attacking guards.
Holy shit.
Anthony himself, the youngest brother, wasn't executed. He escaped that because they couldn't prove he had personally committed any of the murders. He received life plus 119 years without parole. Anthony's in the Augusta Correctional Center in Stanton, Virginia, which is 2 hours away from me.
Oh, yeah.
So the Briley brothers were forced to rely on one another for support. parental neglect and being the oldest of 3 siblings, Linwood was considered the leader and manipulated his younger brothers. They committed crimes together, which was reinforced by the familial bond, normalizing the violence. They weren't desensitized, but normalized it to cope, masking emotions as they each didn't know the other had, so they never communicated feels or thinks as things progressed.
Jeez.
Chances are, if Linwood decided to lower his levels of delinquency and his younger brothers were still around, the younger brothers wouldn't have followed Linwood if he lowered his levels. But we're never going to know. You know, it is what it is. It is how it happened. Brothers are weird.
Yes, they are.
It's a weird dynamic for brothers. I mean, I don't know about your sister. The two of us grew up in very similar situation. Not only that, but we were kind of shelled together, right? Because we only knew each other where we went. And despite that, we're completely different people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fascinating psychological study there, which I'm sure is illegal now. It's fascinating to read about this because I've been reading about the Brileys just looking for a reason to talk about them.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to see brothers doing this, let alone hear about 3 brothers doing this. So,
Absolutely.
Shit, man.
That's quite the cases. Oof.
Yeah. All right, sir.
You can find us on all our social media apps at Brew Crime. If you want to find us on Facebook, we have a group as well. So just look up Brew Crime, the group on Facebook. If you'd like to email us, you can send us a message at brewcrime@pacificbeerchat.com. And if you'd like to support us, go to patreon.com/brewcrime. The money goes towards paying for things like hosting, upgrading equipment, and just making the show better. So shout out to our supporters, True Crime Nana, 3 Beers In Podcast, The Faves of Our Lives, and Amber.
Bye.
Bye. All cases in Brew Crime are written by Mike and JT or a writer we credit on the episode, and sources are put into our show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out our store at tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast, where you can purchase gear like t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, pillows, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo designed by Ben Greenberg. Thanks for listening to this episode of Brew Crime Podcast.
Hi, this is Molly.
And Cody.
The host of Over the Fence True Crime Podcast.
Please join us as we talk about true crime in the most normal place in the world.
Over the fence.
To be specific, over our backyard fence. We're both moms of humans and of dogs. We live directly next door to each other and share many conversations about life and family, but mostly true crime over our backyard fence.
And we invite you to come learn more about true crime and, well, us. We give a lot of attention to California true crime, but have ventured throughout the U.S. and even across the pond and plan to continue our world domination in the near future.
Listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts, or give us a follow on Instagram at overthefence_podcast. So grab a drink and talk with us.
Over the Fence.
Hey, Freaky friends! It's Michelle and Melissa from the Freaky Fridays podcast. We are sisters in separate states and love to talk about all kinds of spooky, freaky, and scary shit while drinking and laughing through our fear.
Join us Fridays as we delve into everything from the world of the paranormal to scary movies to creepy stuff we find around the internet. Subscribe to Freaky Fridays wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Sleep tight.
Make sure you leave the lights on.
Freaky Fridays is a proud member of the Podmoth Network. For more awesome pods, check out podmoth.network.
Why am I going blank here?
And you all should know just how committed Mike is because he recorded a beer-focused podcast last night. And boy, did he record one. And he is back tonight. I would be done for about 48 hours.
Oh, come on now.
You're right. I'd pull it together.
No, I actually didn't. I didn't record it last night. It was the night before. I had dentist appointment yesterday.
Almost worse.
Almost worse, yes. But I was definitely 3 sheets to the wind on my Pacific Beer Chat episode. Yes, it happens.
Yes.
It happens. We drank a bunch of beer from Hawaii that I brought home, and one of them was 16% alcohol.
I now know how to gauge Mike's number of sheets to the wind by how many emojis he uses. So, there it is.
Yes.
Now you know. The secret's out.
Oh, excuse me. Beer got really burpy all of a sudden.
But, you know, they were, you know, sorry. I lost my spot.
No worries.
I'm going to do that again. Imprisoned. Some other, so, I don't, what was I talking about, Mike?
The prison had just shut down in 2012, was it?
Yes, sorry. Yes. His I forgot to say this. Linwood's last words were, "I am innocent."
Yeah, you said that, yeah.
I did say that.
Yeah, never mind.
Shut him down. Oops.